Have you ever wondered why avoidants tend to move from one relationship to another without even missing a beat? And have you ever wondered, is that something all avoidants even do, or is that just a small subset of avoidance? And if so, why do they do that? Or how can I determine if that's about to happen to me in a present or future relationship dynamic? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about exactly that. We're actually going to talk about and dive deeply into this pop psychology term known as monkey branching and how this relates to the avoidant attachment style so that you can protect yourself from becoming a stepping stone in a relationship dynamic if you think that this is something that may be in the works. We're also going to talk about 5 symptoms of how to really tell whether or not this may be about to happen and how to prevent this. Now, if you are anxious or fearful avoidant, so if you're somebody who gets anxious in relationships or fearful avoidance or someone who is more hot and cold in relationships, kind of touch and go, all in or all out, find yourself flip-flopping a lot, we are going to talk about tools for what to do at the end. So how to stop this cycle from occurring. And if you are a dismissive avoidant watching this and find yourself being the one in relationships that's often closed off or avoidant, we're actually going to discuss root cause as to why this can happen. And by the way, when we talk about the 5 symptoms this is about to happen in a relationship dynamic, please know that this doesn't mean if you see a couple of these things that for sure somebody's doing this, but some of these symptoms may also really shift and change the way you think about attachment styles, about relationships in a really powerful way forever. So stay tuned for those. We'll dive deeper into that in a little bit. Also, really quick, if you're new here, my name is Thais. I'm so excited that you're here because I love sharing stuff like this. I love educating people on relationships and how the subconscious mind works and psychology. So I'm so grateful that you're here to listen. And hopefully this video has an impact on your life and future relationships, even in just a teeny tiny way. So what is monkey branching? What does this even mean? Well, monkey branching is a term used to describe when somebody in a relationship begins to emotionally and sometimes even physically invest in a new potential partner while still being in their current relationship. And it's really like somebody is swinging from one monkey branch to another without letting go of the first branch first, which is their current relationship. And you may see them not even let go of the first branch until they seem to have a firm grip on the next relationship. And a lot of times, this behavior often indicates a lack of commitment or some underlying fears. Now, I want to start by saying 80% of dismissive avoidance when they get out of a relationship dynamic and they go through a breakup, roughly 80% or so literally just go be alone. They take their time. They don't invest in somebody else right away. They go back to respecting their independence and their freedom. They're like, oh, I have freedom. And as you know, if you've been watching this channel for a little while, that tends to be somewhat short-lived, usually 6 weeks, 8 weeks after a breakup. They start like missing their ex a little bit and kind of feeling into some of those old feelings that they had, and sometimes even question their decision. But you may see that as a means of trying to get some sort of comfort or reinforcement, dismissive avoidance, that 80% will maybe go on dating apps or message people online through social media in a flirtatious way. It's almost like they will look for some sort of validation or reinforcement after a breakup with somebody, but wanting that validation and reinforcement to be very low committal, very low effort, not very vulnerable. And so you may see like that 80% chunk of avoidance sort of like reach out, do things where they're not really rebounding after a relationship. They're not really jumping at the bit to like invest in somebody else and start something fresh. But then we have this really interesting 20% of dismissive avoidance who do tend to rebound and do tend to sometimes monkey branch. Now, I will say a lot of times it's not necessarily that they're physically investing in somebody else, like actively cheating physically, sexually, but they may be building an emotional bond and sort of like connecting with somebody in the background in an emotional or even in some cases romantic way before actually leaving the one relationship. And then you may see as a symptom of somebody having monkey branch that suddenly they're in a fully new committed relationship just a few short weeks after you broke up with them or they broke up with you or the relationship ended. And it may leave you wondering, what's going on here? Were they seeing somebody before? They're usually slow to commit. How are they in a situation where just a few weeks after breaking up, they're suddenly with somebody else already? That doesn't mean that if you've ever seen this, that for sure that person did the monkey branching with absolute certainty. But it should raise a red flag in the vast majority of cases because, especially with an avoidant, it's much less likely that they're seriously going to meet somebody and jump into a serious or committed relationship right after another one ends. Now, what about this 20% of DAs who do monkey branch, these avoidant attachment styles, dismissive avoidance who do monkey branch? What are symptoms that this is about to even happen? Well, we're going to talk about 5 of them, and then I'm going to tell you how to address these symptoms if you see any of these dynamics in a current relationship, or if you even just want to remember for future relationship dynamics what to be on the lookout for and how to have sometimes hard but really important conversations so that we prevent these types of scenarios from occurring. Well, number one of the biggest things you'll see is if there is a sudden and marked loss of interest. So maybe somebody's been in a relationship dynamic and they're investing, they're showing up, and it seems like quite suddenly there's a change in the pattern. Now, we know this is already something that can happen with dismissive avoidance. So I want you to look at the baseline, okay? Let's say, for example, that you have an avoidant partner, and let's say their baseline is that, they talk to you every day, you have a few text exchanges, maybe a couple phone calls a week, and you see them once or twice a week. And maybe every so often you hear from them less on, once or twice a week. They text a little less, they're a little bit short. That would be your baseline. Okay. Now, if there's a sudden loss of interest, it would mean that that baseline changes. So I know dismissive avoidance can be a little inconsistent with communication, right? We know that on the channel. So we're comparing to the baseline, inclusive of that inconsistency that you may have seen in the passive communication. So if that baseline is what we said, you see them once or twice a week, you text with them every day, phone call once or twice a week, but some days they're a little not so great at responding to text or they take a long time to answer. The sudden loss of interest for point number 1 here would be that, like, you suddenly don't hear from them at all for 3 or 4 days, or, what was 1 or 2 days of sporadic texting sometimes becomes like the whole week. There's a big drop off from that baseline you were used to. Okay. So that would be symptom number 1 to start like raising a red flag. Symptom number 2 of 5 is there may be increased secrecy. Now, I want to establish a big difference here between the idea of secrecy and privacy. Dismissive avoidance, they tend to value their privacy because a lot of the times they associate privacy as being a source of independence. If I don't have to tell everybody where I'm at all the time or what I'm doing, I am maintaining my independence. I don't have to answer to anybody. Sometimes that's like a little bit of a subconscious mechanism for avoidant attachment styles. Privacy can also be like, I don't share or divulge all my experiences in my childhood or my family. I'm slower to warm up or open up to sharing those things. That would be privacy. And secrecy would be more of like actively hiding things. So maybe you're used to sitting down with your partner or loved one and they leave their phone on the table and they don't think twice. But now maybe you see them like, seeing that it's up and going back and turning it over. Now maybe you see that, they are going out of their way to avoid telling you things. And again, we want to compare this to a baseline, right? We want to, you may even see things like somebody saying, "Oh yeah, I saw you out the other day." And then, really shutting down the conversation. And if you ask anything, they shut that down further or deflect. Like changes in that baseline. Maybe your avoidant loved one was quite private, where they didn't open up and divulge all these details and share all these things, but now it may seem like they're actively kind of hiding things. Then this would be secrecy. And again, I just want to be clear, this is not something all avoidants do is monkey branch. This is something that may happen sometimes. And we can talk about other attachment styles in other videos and if this may be a pattern of them as well. Another big one is you may see a lot less future planning. Again, we're looking for sudden drop offs according to the baseline, a symptom that this may actually be about to happen in a relationship dynamic. And you may even see like frequent changes in how often you would spend time physically together. So if you're used to seeing them once a week on the weekend or twice on the weekend, like Friday, Sundays or Saturday, Sunday, maybe there's suddenly like a weekend or two where you don't see them. Okay. And again, this may be a big sign or something to pay attention to. And last but not least, another big one is if you see there's this loss of emotional investment. Okay. They seem distracted. They seem like preoccupied with their phone all the time. They're not really present with you at all. Again, changes in baseline. And if you see that sudden drop off, right? Those are those two sort of like caveats to pay attention to when we talk about these 5 symptoms. If you're interested in helping make a huge impact on other people's lives while also building financial freedom, I'm offering an early bird 50% discount on our integrated attachment theory relationship certification program that will help you become a certified integrated attachment theory relationship coach and build your own thriving practice by the end of 12 weeks. This 12-week on demand program will help you kickstart your new career by teaching you revolutionary tools and strategies that help clients transform their lives and relationships. Build your own coaching practice and set yourself up for a waitlist of clients and financial success. Even if you have no coaching experience, this program will give you very in depth tools, resources, and confidence to get started in a matter of weeks. And you can learn more information by clicking the link down below. If you think this may be happening or about to happen in your relationship, what should you do? Well, number one, I think it's really important to have a conversation if you're seeing sudden changes to these five things, no matter what, because this could just indicate that somebody's holding on to something or resentful or shut down, right? It doesn't mean that if somebody has a few of these things that for sure they are monkey branching. So I think it's really a call for a conversation. Hey, I noticed that there's been a shift in our dynamic. I noticed that things seem off and like we're not as connected to each other or seeing each other as much. And that's really tough on me. I'd love for us to make an effort to go back to a better space around this. Is there something that's on your mind or something that you need to share or talk about or something that you're holding on to that we could work to resolve? Okay. So that's how you would address that conversation in a healthy way. And then you may even go so far as to ask, like, hey, how are your needs being met in a relationship? And this has to be reciprocal. So this has to be you asking if their needs feel met and what you could work together to improve on, and also you sharing about your needs and what you feel like you could receive better from them. It's just easier a lot of the time to extend out by starting with, are your needs being met, and asking that person. So making sure there's reciprocity there in the conversation or communication is obviously a big deal. And then here's the really important part. Let's say that the person says everything's fine, and then they just keep shutting down and it gets worse. And then all of a sudden, the relationship is fizzling out or coming to a close. Well, then to be perfectly honest, that wasn't the person for you, anyways, because I think that anybody sitting here listening to this channel here today, my hope for you is that you want to be in a relationship dynamic with somebody who wants to grow with you, somebody who wants to evolve with you, somebody who, when there's a hard time or there's a challenge in the way, that they want to say, yeah, this is a hard time. How do we work through it? Let's figure it out together. And I want that, I hope that that's something that most people will keep as a standard for themselves in a relationship, because that's how we continuously grow together with somebody instead of growing apart. And if somebody's not willing to do that work, it could be a dismissive avoidant. Honestly, there are other attachment styles, monkey branch as well at times, and we'll talk about that in future videos. But if this is something that's happening, it means that person wasn't ready for a healthy, committed relationship where they do the work. And that means that the relationship's growth is going to be stunted down the track no matter what. So, what I would advise doing is, if you see this, number one, if you see them actually monkey branch or you've already seen it in your past, do the work to heal yourself. Make a list of like all the needs that they were meeting and become a force of nature to meet those things in the relationship with yourself, with family, with healthy friendships, and allow yourself to get over that grief, which is really a void of those needs being left behind. Like, you were used to leaning on somebody for certain needs, now they're gone, we have this void left behind, and that's actually a big part of what makes up breakup grief. So fill that void up through other healthy sources, one of them absolutely being the relationship to yourself. If you miss that this person would validate you, learn to self-validate. If you miss that this person would make you feel seen at times or understood you, practice giving those things to yourself. Check in with yourself more often to see yourself. Try to understand what's going on inside of you as a means of getting those needs met. We want to source those things in healthier ways so that we can move on more quickly, and then also have these standards for healthy relationships going forward. And if you're seeing these five symptoms from somebody in a relationship, but they're not ending the relationship and they're not monkey branching or moving on with somebody else, set a deadline. How long will I stay in this relationship dynamic? Is this even the right thing for me? Well, maybe I'll pour in for 2 months and try to really make this work and get us back on track. But if I don't see the other person participating or showing up with me, I have to set myself free out of self honoring and self respect. So I want to encourage you to look at those things. And if you want to do a deeper dive into this topic of how to heal from a breakup if something's not working, or even how to work through a relationship and decide if it's worth repairing, then I will put two free course links below that are both free for a limited time. You can check them out. One is how to repair any relationship. It's about how to get things back on track and decide if that's the right move to make, and how to heal from a breakup, how to speed up the process of grieving after a relationship and really strengthening and empowering the relationship you have to yourself. Now, if you have experienced monkey branching in your past relationships, please share. I'd love to hear your story so that I can read through the comments, come in, make future content about this topic, because I feel like this is a really easy place to experience a lot of heartache and we don't have enough resources for that. So we'll definitely work to make more videos and support and resources for this. Or if you just want to share some different things that happen with you in general, I'm interested to learn more from everybody's comments and shares. And if you enjoy this channel, please subscribe or consider subscribing. I make pretty much daily videos here all about the subconscious mind and healing a lot of the time and how this impacts relationships. Because if you didn't already know, our conscious mind is responsible for roughly 3 to 5% of all of our beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. And our subconscious is responsible for 95 to 97%. So the real work, the real personal growth, personal development, healing, it has to engage the subconscious mind in the process. Thank you so much for watching.